The first time it happened, Ngozi thought she was imagining things. The locker breathed. Not a creak, not a hum, but a soft, steady sound, like someone sleeping inside metal. Her fingers froze inches from the handle. Her heart pounded like drums in a village square. Whoever, or whatever, was inside, it knew her name. Ngozi had only just started at Uduk Secondary School. Her bag felt heavier than usual as she pushed through the old iron gate. The hinges groaned as if warning her to turn back. The courtyard lay empty, but she could feel the walls watching. She checked the map in her trembling hand. SS1C. Her locker. In the forgotten wing. The name alone made her stomach twist. The east wing stretched before her like a path no one walked in years. Grass grew through the cracked pavement. Windows were dusty, doors dark. And then she heard it, a long, slow sigh. The kind of sigh a living thing gives when it exhales after a long sleep. She stepped closer. The door to the wing seemed to shiver, almost breathing itself. Her hand hovered over the handle. Every instinct screamed to run, but her feet moved forward anyway. Somewhere, deep in that wing, something waited for her. Locker 44 was unremarkable, or so it seemed. Green paint chipped, a small dent in the corner. Ngozi put her hand on it, and warmth paused beneath her fingers. Her breath caught. "It's just metal," she whispered to herself, but it felt alive. Beating. Waiting. She tried the combination, 15, 32, 8. Click. The door swung open. Empty shelves. Dust. Spiderwebs. Nothing. She laughed nervously. "Just first day nerves," she muttered. But then she heard it again. Soft. Gentle. Steady. Oh. The locker breathed. And she realized, this was no ordinary locker. The day went on like normal. Students laughed, teachers droned, the principal reminded everyone that locker assignments were final. But Ngozi could not stop thinking about it. Locker 44. Its warmth. Its quiet breathing. Even in the crowd, she felt it calling her back. Break time came, and she did not join the others. Hunger tugged at her, but something stronger, something alive, drew her to the forgotten wing. The hallway was darker than she remembered, colder. Shadows clung to the walls. The lockers whispered to one another as she passed. Then she saw it. Locker 44. The door moved. Just slightly, forward and back, like a chest taking long, calm breaths. Her shadow trembled against the wall. She pressed her hand to the metal. Warm. Living. Her fingers recoiled. The vent stared at her, black and impossible. Something inside waited. She ran. Past Section E, past the flickering lights, back into the sunlight where life felt normal again. But far away, in the forgotten wing, Locker 44 kept breathing. Waiting. That night, sleep would not come. Every shadow in her room seemed to breathe with the same rhythm, who. She wanted to call Chiamaka, the head girl who had noticed her near the lockers. But fear held her fingers still. At midnight, she sent a message anyway, "I need to talk about Locker 44. Something is happening." A reply came almost instantly, "Meet me tomorrow during lunch. Behind the library. Come alone." Ngozi lay awake, heart hammering. The next morning, Chiamaka was already waiting. Her eyes were tired, her jaw set like stone. No greeting. No smile. Just a nod. Together, they entered the forgotten wing. The lockers greeted them with a chorus of breath, who. One by one, Ngozi realized they were alive. Not just her locker. Every locker in Section E swelled and shrunk like chests rising and falling in sleep. Heat radiated from the metal. Shadows moved behind the vents. Locker 44 called her name. She wanted to step back. She wanted to run. But she had come here knowing there was no turning back. Chiamaka whispered, "Remember, don't put your hand inside." That's how it took Ifenanya. Ngozi nodded. Her fingers shook as she turned the lock. The metal handle burned her hand. The lockers shuddered. Shadows slid behind the vents. A whisper called out, "Ngozi." Click. Silence. The air froze. Even the other lockers stopped breathing. She pulled the door open. And inside, nothing made sense. No shelves. No wall. Just endless darkness. Then a face appeared. Half-formed. As white as uncooked yam. It breathed. "Ngozi, you finally came," it said. She stepped back. Chiamaka held her. The face smiled, sharp teeth glinting. "We need young life. Fresh life. And your spirit is the key." Ngozi slammed the door. The locker kept breathing. Who? Hundreds of lockers in the wind joined in rhythm, like unseen chests rising and falling. They ran. Sunlight felt like rescue, but deep in the forgotten wind, something whispered her name. Ngozi. And she knew the battle had only just begun. The next morning, Ngozi moved through the school like a shadow. Every sound, footsteps, laughter, the scrape of chairs, felt louder than usual, like it might mask something lurking just out of sight. Even the sun seemed weak in the courtyard. She carried her books tightly, almost afraid to look at the lockers in the wings. Chiamaka's warning from last night echoed in her mind, "Don't go near it alone." But fear had a way of pulling her back. During break, while other students ran to the canteen or lounged under the mango tree, Ngozi slipped quietly toward the forgotten wing. The pathway seemed longer than before. Grass brushed against her ankles like warning fingers. Shadows curled along the walls, twisting like smoke. The hallway of Section E was darker than ever. The lights flickered, buzzing faintly. Every locker seemed to breathe. Locker 44 pulsed with heat. Slowly. Steadily. Patiently. Ngozi pressed her palm against the metal. Warm. Alive. She jumped back. A whisper brushed her ear. "Ngozi." She spun around. Nothing. Just shadows curling behind the vents. Somewhere deep in the wing, another locker shivered. Who? A rhythm that was not hers but mimicked hers, like it had learned it long ago. Chiamaka appeared from the shadows, moving silently. Her eyes were sharp. Her presence steady. "You came back," she said quietly. Ngozi nodded, unable to speak. Words would betray the terror that curled through her chest. Chiamaka stepped closer to locker 44. "It knows you. It watches. You cannot ignore it." They stood in silence. The lockers around them shivered. By the next morning, the school's quiet was gone. The forgotten wing pulsed with sound. Who? Every locker joined in. Even lockers Ngozi had never noticed before seemed to twitch and swell. She tried to ignore it, but the breathing haunted her. Every lesson, every bell, every moment in the sunlit courtyard reminded her, the lockers are awake. And they remember her. During lunch, she found Chiamaka behind the library again. The head girl's eyes were darker now, haunted by the memory of what had happened the year before. "There is a story," Chiamaka said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Long ago, students lived in this wing. At night, they walked the hallways without waking. Some vanished. Some went mad. Some never returned." Ngozi shivered. "And the lockers?" Chiamaka shook her head. "They became doors. Doors for something that waits. For life to feed, for life to open new doors." The words sank into Ngozi's chest like stones. She remembered Ifinanya, the girl who vanished. The locker that had called her name. The heat. The breath. Chiamaka's voice broke through the quiet. You cannot run from it. It will find you. It has already chosen you. That night, Ngozi barely slept. Her room seemed to shrink, shadows curling around her bed. Who, you, who? The sound of the locker followed her even in dreams. By midnight, she had sent another message to Chiamaka, we must face it tomorrow. Chiamaka replied immediately, prepare yourself. Together. Otherwise, it would take you like it took Ifinanya. Ngozi stared at the ceiling, imagining the rows of lockers rising and falling, shadows twisting behind the vents. A name whispered in the darkness, Ngozi. The battle was coming. She knew it. The next day, they went together. Chiamaka and Ngozi moved like two hunters, careful, quiet. The forgotten wind greeted them with its deep, steady breathing. Who? 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 Chiamaka pulled a small bundle from her bag. Candles. Salt. A small iron key. We prepare, she said simply. If it chooses to test you, we will not be helpless. Ngozi nodded, swallowing hard. The warmth from locker 44 reached her chest before she even saw it. It radiated like it had a pulse of its own. The hallway had changed. Lockers that had once been still now twitched. A low hum rose from the metal. Who? Ngozi wanted to run, but Chiamaka held her shoulder. Do not let it know your fear. That is what it wants. Ahead, locker 44 pulsed, swelling almost 4 inches with each inhale. The edges glowed red like embers. Shadows behind it moved like living smoke. Who, it breathed. Ngozi shivered. Her own breath matched the rhythm involuntarily. Every inhale, every exhale, pulled her closer, like the lockers were learning her body, her rhythm, her life. A whisper called out from one of the vents. Ngozi. Chiamaka whispered back, do not answer. Do not call it by name. That is how it finds its prey. Ngozi gripped the iron key. She inserted it into the lock. The metal shivered beneath her fingers, warm, almost alive. The key turned with a soft click that echoed like a drumbeat in the silent wind. Locker 44 swung open slowly. Darkness spilled out like liquid night. Shadows twisted within, moving independently of the metal door. A faint, half-formed face emerged. Pale, smooth, eyes wide and empty like uncooked yam. Who? The locker breathed. Ngozi, a whisper echoed from the darkness. Chiamaka held her hand tightly. Stay together, she said. The locker pulsed with heat. Shadows flickered across the walls like fire. And then, from the darkness, a figure stepped forward. Human-like, but wrong. Teeth too sharp, limbs too long, eyes that seemed to know every secret Ngozi had ever held. You came, it said, voice low and chilling. We have waited for you. Ngozi's heart pounded, but she did not move back. She gripped the iron key tighter. The battle had begun. The air in the forgotten wing felt alive. Every breath Ngozi took seemed too loud, too sharp, as if the lockers themselves were listening. Ngozi stood at the edge of Chiamaka's circle of candles. Her hands trembled, but she gripped the iron key like a lifeline. Who? The sound was louder than before, filling the hallway, vibrating through the floor, climbing up her legs. Her own heartbeat matched it without her permission. She felt the warmth radiating from the locker, not just heat, but intent, awareness. Chiamaka leaned close. Remember, she whispered, do not reach inside. It can sense more than hands. It can sense fear. Courage. Doubt. Desire. Ngozi swallowed hard. She could feel the pull, a magnetic force tugging her toward the darkness. A whisper called from the locker vents. Ngozi, come, come. Her knees shook. But she did not move back. Not this time. As the locker swung fully open, shapes began to emerge from the darkness. Faint, flickering figures, pale and translucent, like half-formed memories. Some had eyes wide with terror. Others smiled faintly, eyes empty, mouths moving in silence. One figure stepped forward, and Ngozi froze. It was Ifunanya. The girl who had vanished. Her clothes hung loosely, damp and darkened with shadow. Her eyes were alive, but hollow. She extended a trembling hand toward Ngozi. Do not reach. If you reach," Chiamaka whispered urgently, pulling Ngozi back. But Ngozi's heart ached. The girl had been waiting. Trapped. She had been caught between worlds, and the locker had fed on her fear. Who? The lockers echoed the sound, rising, swelling, filling the entire wing. A dozen other lockers shivered violently. Some leaned outward as if straining to escape their metal cages. Shadows flickered inside each vent, twisting and writhing. Its face, half-formed, half-smile, tilted, examining Ngozi. "You are the key," it whispered. "You are the one who will open more doors." Ngozi's stomach twisted. She thought of the other students, the boy who froze at locker 47, the whispers from locker 46, the missing children. With a trembling hand, Ngozi inserted the iron key into locker 44. The metal hummed under her touch, warm and almost soft, like flesh. Shadows inside twisted violently, reaching out. A cold wind rushed from the locker, blowing the candle's flames toward the wall. Who? The sound multiplied, coming from every locker in the wing. The air itself felt alive, thick, pressing against their chest. A hand reached from the darkness, not Ifunanya's, not human. Long, pale, fingers sharp like talons. It hovered near Ngozi's face. Chiamaka whispered sharply, "Do not touch it. Let it see you. Only see it. Do not give it fear." Ngozi forced her gaze into the darkness. The half-formed face leaned closer, breathing heavy, smelling her fear, tasting her courage. It tilted its head, studying her. Then, slowly, it withdrew. The whispers faded. The locker exhaled, the glow softening but still hot. Ngozi stepped back. She had passed the first test. The other lockers began to tremble more violently. Who? Locker 47 rose several inches off the ground. Shadows moved inside like living smoke. Ngozi realized something terrible. The lockers were not just containers. They were gateways. Gateways to a place where fear became life, where courage became a breach, where the lost children, the missing students, were trapped until someone strong enough opened the door. Locker 44 paused, brighter than ever. The half-formed face stared at Ngozi with hollow eyes. "Do you understand?" it whispered. "You are the key. Without you, none will live. With you, many will cross." Ngozi shivered. I do not want to open others. I want to save them." The locker's breath slowed slightly. It seemed curious now, testing her will. Chiamaka nodded. "You must. If you hesitate, the others will never leave." The wing, it feeds on hesitation. With Chiamaka's hand holding hers, Ngozi stepped closer. She looked into locker 44, into the endless blackness, into the half-formed face. Slowly, deliberately, she placed her other hand on the doorframe. The shadows inside recoiled slightly. Who grew softer. The other lockers watched, waiting. A pale hand reached toward her, not threatening, just trembling. It was Ifunanya. Ngozi grasped it carefully. The shadows moved, twisting around her hand. Warmth spread from the locker, not like fire, but like recognition. Chiamaka placed her hand on the next locker's lock. She whispered instructions. Slowly, carefully, they began to open more lockers. The shadows of lost students floated out, pale, flickering, trembling with relief. Who? Each locker exhaled as a student escaped, the sound echoing like hundreds of tiny heartbeats filling the hall. The forgotten wing seemed to breathe with them, alive and finally calm. The wing was quiet now. Empty. But alive in a new way. Ngozi understood. The lockers were not evil. They were ancient. Guardians of a threshold. But they needed courage, choice, and a key. She had been chosen, and she had passed. The forgotten wing breathed one last time. Who? Then it settled into silence. Ngozi and Chiamaka walked out together. Sunlight spilled over the courtyard. Birds chirped. The world outside felt ordinary again. But deep in the school, locker 44 waited. Patient. Watching. Remembering. And somewhere in the shadows, Ifunanya and the others finally smiled. The battle had been won, but the lockers would always wait for the next key.